Yeah, hi, thanks. Good to be here. I'm Lee Campbell, founder and CEO of CubeLogic. We're an enterprise credit risk and compliance platform. So interoperability is obviously key to us. Alex, do you want to?
Yeah, I'm CEO and founder of Lead Consult. As mentioned before, we're IT integration company. We have a pretty successful middleware product, low-code, no-code solution where we're connecting probably all the energy softwares you can think of. And we have been part of the digitalization of the energy business in Europe the last 13, 14 years, participating in projects over 20 European countries.
Hi, I'm Ellen Stars. I work for CubeLogic. I started my career back in the early 90s as a developer and then moved into working in more business analysis, and I actually started working on risk systems in about 1996. So I've done everything from parametric VAR through to, Monte Carlo, historical VAR, and all the systems in between. So all the way through the 2000s, I did a lot of research on credit risk and credit derivatives and tail risk. So some of us did see the financial crisis coming. And then sort of moved more into the energy and commodity space around 2016, 17. And so all through that time, I've been involved in technology, and I've seen the technology challenges, both in terms of what we wanted to do from a quantitative perspective, where it demanded a lot of power, through to today, where we actually have some of the solutions, but now we have masses of data, so what do we do with it? So new technology, challenges today. So I'm excited to talk about some of that experience.
My name is Asbjørn Hansen. I am the CEO and founder of Previse Systems, together with a bunch of other ex-colleagues from another ETRM vendor in the past. What we do is we build ETRM systems, right? And we try to build them in a different way to utilize the technology to do exactly what you're saying, right? In terms of building tool sets and utilizing streaming of data, utilizing the ability rather than to take the data, put it as a CSV file and move it around as we used to do back in 2000s. Trying to ensure that we don't have to do that anymore. Can we leave it where it is, consume it, do something with it and move it on, right? So we don't have to duplicate data everywhere at all times. And that's one of the things we try to focus on, and building a system of a solution of many different platforms that gives a solution for the customers, right? For the trading houses, but at the same time being part of that solution and only one little part of it. And that's when we come back to CubeLogic and some of the middleware tools, right? These tools all need to fit together and talk to each other. And if they don't do that, there's no solution, right? So, yeah, that's what we do.
You'll be surprised how many CSVs are still flying around in trading companies. My name is Gunnar. I'm from ETRM Services, Director, Sales and Business Development, Europe. Been in the energy trading IT years, I think. We're responsible for many integrations for our customers, also providing managed services and managing the integrations on a holistic level. And I think that is one of the key assets that we can bring to our customers, where they have individual vendors always pointing at the other side, right? It's their problem, and we take full responsibility of that. So yeah.
Yeah, so we've got some very interesting different perspectives on interoperability. And I think what I've seen is a transition from what used to be, let's try and do everything on Endor, let's do it all in one system, to a kind of more of a best of breed asset class. I want the best system for this particular asset class. I want a standalone market risk system, standalone credit risk system, and that ultimately brings the challenge of interoperability. So how would you define that, and what are the kind of frictions to kind of own context, in your own piece? So should we start with you, Alan?
For me, interoperability is the name of the game, I have to say. And during the last 15 years in the energy business, I think that it has been massively underestimated by many, many people. Even what you said, of course, I fully agree. The last 5 years or so, we have noticed that this type of silo system that have been doing everything are slowly getting replaced, and interoperability gets actually more and more in the center of the whole story. All these years, even with the big systems, I have to say that we have so many customers that have not 20, 30, but sometimes 50, 60 various softwares in the energy industry. And I have here clients say often this system is not okay or the other system is not okay. And to be honest, since the same system have been extremely successful at other clients, obviously it's not the system fault for this thing. And CSV comment that the biggest frictions for me, one of the biggest friction is that extremely nice modern systems appear on the screen and they have RESTful APIs and queuing and all kinds of modern technology, but there are so systems that still support, it's not even CSV, they call it CSV, but to be a CSV file you have technical requirements, and sometimes it is just some crazy file there that needs to be integrated. And the massive friction for me is basically very often I don't see the strategy behind these integrations. It is done by patches. So something happens, then okay, let us integrate this one, let us integrate the next one, the third one, the fourth one, and at some point you have a jungle. And this is something that is still underestimated. We're trying to solve it. I think the companies here are a very good example of that challenge. We're trying to solve it first from a strategy perspective, so trying to advise on the strategically how to do this. I think the 2 sessions today were really good examples why this is needed. And after having a good strategy, obviously trying to implement it is extremely important. And the last thing as a friction that I wanted to mention is that even with some of the guys here we discussed already in the break, I would say it's a political friction between the business and the IT of the companies. Very often I notice that the integration challenges are left to the technical teams, if I can say that. Basically the IT is responsible for that and the business is not involved to enough extent in my point of view, which results sometimes into strange solutions, because the business to account, very often extremely technical people are only involved in these projects, so they don't, sometimes it's over-engineered and stuff like that. So all these things that I mentioned together are really very friction market, and of course with the volatility and all the political risks that we discussed, it's a big challenge to resolve, but also really nice to be trying to solve it, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, having worked on enterprise risk projects, and it's a bit like I've heard like credit risk systems described as a bit like the plumbing in your house. It's not very good looking. Not everybody really cares about it, but it touches on it touches everywhere, and it's a very important piece. And so within kind of enterprise companies, it's across your front, your middle, and your back office, and you're touching on various points where you're pulling data, you're pushing data, but then there's on, well, which is the golden source of data, and where does it come from? And sometimes, with the best will in the world, people have selected, oh, the ETRM, let's make that the golden source of data. But the data that you need in different systems isn't always kind of equivalent to the data that you need, in your ETRM. So your ETRM is storing your trade data. It's very much a book of records on what has been done. From a credit risk perspective, we also want to run a lot of different scenarios. We want to do a lot of what ifs. So we want to play with that data, and we want to extend it. We want to do a bit more with it. So where do we store all the, all the scenarios, all the stress testing? And so, if you're doing it across an enterprise, like I said, if it's front, middle, and back, you then multiply that by, if you want to do global, credit risk across many different entities in your company, you're now aggregating data from many different parts. And so for me, what I can see is I would really, and we do a lot of projects, obviously, where we're implementing these systems, and people say to me, what's the most difficult part? And I say, your data. Making sure you've got clean data, and it's data that we can take from many different systems and aggregate for you. So I really think one of the best sort of solutions really is to have a data officer, somebody who, to your point on being strategic, and is looking across the company, not just kind of on a piecemeal basis, but is talking to the business users, is talking to the IT, and really has that data strategy, because we're in a wonderful time where we have the cloud, we have the Internet of Things, we've got a great selection, but then we need them all to talk to each other. And how can we make best use of that so that their data can flow a lot more efficiently? And we're working with some clients at the moment where I think they're taking a really good approach to implementing their systems. They've actually started a data project over a year ago before they even started buying new systems. And what they're doing is they're building a big data lake, and all the systems are going to have to push and pull data from this data lake. So they have started a really long project. I mean, they started the technical implementation over a year ago, but going back 3 years, they've actually been thinking about how can we do this. And I'm really excited to be working with them on this project, because I think this is going to really show us kind of a way forward and how we can actually best use data from a data lake that all of the applications can push and pull data from. So I really think having a good data strategy is the key to making everything more interoperable.
Yeah, and data dictionaries comes into that, right? So when I look at the data at the end of the lake, where does it come from? Where's the source of this data, right? Because in this landscape, you will never have just one source, right? You'll have source that is, you'll take your counterparty data from Acer, right? You'll take your market price from Zima. You'll have all kind of sources of these data, and you need to figure out where it comes from, where the source is, and then put it all together. Yeah. And I think that makes it easier and more complex at the same time, right? Because from a creditor standpoint, you need all the counterparty information, but you also need the flexibility in the agreements, so you can actually model, well, what happens if we utilize, go full or go down, right? Talk about the risk before, right? How do you model that? How do you keep track of the min-max takes you can do in different agreements, on the flexible agreements, right? And what that means to the risk figures, right? And again, you need to store that somewhere. It needs to be very good quality, so that you can feed it on in the show, and ensuring that it can stream through and it can be understood by all the other systems, right? So part of this problem, I think, is also about standardizing data and ensuring that we have standardized sources where we all follow the same. If we have a counterparty, here's the way we define a counterparty, all of us, right? And let's utilize that, standardize those sort of simple things, so that we can use them across all systems, right? Rather than having to reinvent the wheel every time, and having every client building a big data project up front before they even do something, right? Because that is expensive, and you're now reinventing the wheel to an extent, right?
Yeah. Well, I couldn't agree more. It's like having like a data officer and like a strategic thinking on like data. It's like almost like at every customer I see this like being driven like on a case by case basis. There is a problem. We need to connect like systems. We need to like sleeve data like left and right, and we address like this one problem, but we do not have like a strategic thinking on like how to address that. Right? So I think that is absolutely key, and that is if you have a customer that does that, that is fantastic. I don't see it very often. Yeah, well, but it's really needed. Yeah. As most of the systems, like especially like modern systems, have good ways like to give and receive data, right? Not all systems do that, and there is like a very exotic landscape around that, with all kinds of like Python and all. Right, around it, also consuming all kinds of data, right? So like really having a strategic thinking about like your data model and how you want to address that, I think is one of the key things. On the other side, what I also see is like customers that are creating like data lakes and like data warehouses for the sake of data warehouses, and they're duplicating like lots of like business functions that traditionally don't belong there. They belong in an e-term system. They belong in like a credit management system, right? And they're just trying to replicate. It starts with like, can you give us that? Can you give us that, right? And then there's more questions, and they're starting like to like duplicate all kinds of functions, right? And I think that is absolutely not necessary. But it comes down again like to having like a strategic thinking on your data model.
I just wanted to add that I had with the strategic thinking, and thanks a lot for the addition. I have also the same experience that not so many companies are doing it at the moment. We had though really a few of these projects in the last 2-3 years, And I can only recommend that everybody takes a step back, because I see a major shift when you do it strategically. And when you are changing one of your system is a very good point. So for example, if you're changing or you are planning to change your ETRM system, highly advise that you get the step back and you do the strategic thinking first. I wouldn't even call it that it's just a data warehouse or data lake project. It is more like, we call it IT digital landscape of the future. So basically together with the internal teams, just create platform, or let's say future world that would be ideal. Without existing, just aim at something. And then, of course, select the right systems, the right consultants, maybe implementation partners, and follow this route. We have a few of these customers already, and comparing to all the other projects that I have seen, the benefits are immense on the extendability, maintainability, and yeah, a lot of issues disappear basically.
And I think there's the one thing to add to that, right, is how do we work, right? If you're coming from the world, you're saying, hey, there's many people with CSV files and all this stuff, right? And we kind of have two types of customers, right? There's the kind of old school customers who've been around for a while, they're in that world. Then there's all the new customers where the walls between IT and business have been broken down. You don't have that, well, IT will deal with that, that's a file. Instead, you have young people sitting in front office, doing Python stuff, dealing with data and building solutions right there and then to be agile and to be adaptable, right? In order for you to be able to do that and still keep track of your data, you need to have a strategy for that. And if that's the way we're going to work in the future, you will move away from that separation between IT and business. Business is there, IT is there to push the business forward. If you don't combine them very closely, you'll fail, you'll lose. And so I think it drives a lot of things at the same time.
I think it's interesting. And a lot of what you said is, you know, it kind of focuses on interoperability between, you know, more modern systems, and obviously a lot of complex landscapes are out there with a mix of, you know, some legacy systems, a new ETRM here, a risk system that's, you know, nice RESTful APIs. So what are the challenges when you go into a complex landscape of, you know, with a mixture of some modern technologies, maybe a data lake, but also some legacy? Some oil companies are running systems that are 20 years old. How do you deal with those kinds of challenges? What have you seen?
This is the usual setup everywhere. It's really funny. When I started in the energy sector around 2010, I didn't expect that, to be honest. The first time when I saw like extremely important systems in so many countries driven by colored Excel file. I mean, they were using yellow and red, and if you have yellow, it means something, and if you have red, another thing. And I do remember 15 years ago, and I asked, okay, why do you do that? Why don't we replace it with a more modern file? And the response was, we cannot do it because it's not just our decision. We need, I don't know how many other companies to agree and all this stuff. To this day, 15 years later, as you all know, these files are still there. I don't know whether they will probably stay forever, who knows. But what I'm trying to say is that, for example, when we started creating our middleware platform, our idea was exactly what you said: modern system, RESTful APIs, cool integrations and stuff like that. And what turned out to be the biggest challenge everywhere is that these modern systems actually need connection to the old systems. And even if the clients, this is the other thing, the new generation, you say, there are so many clients that actually want to digitalize fast and easy and stuff like that. But there are so many of these old systems that are there for 20, 30 plus years. They are not modernizing, they are not investing into that. There is no plan of this. There is also no purpose because nobody will actually do something. So basically, at some point they will be replaced. But this point could be in 10 years, 15 years. So you need a solution that is actually integrating easily with this type of systems. At the same time, I have so many examples that I could give. I remember one of the tendering platforms was creating a crazy good, nice RESTful API. And they were complaining that nobody is using it because people are doing manual Excel files instead. And it ended up into basically, we did a project for that, and it ended up creating from one side email connector. Basically, we told all the clients, okay, you have the Excel file, you don't want to do RESTful call, it's a project for you, just send us the file. And on the one side, we consume Excel files with yellow and comments, crazy stuff. One of the clients actually asked us, they use comments in the Excel. So you can go to A5 and you can write something as a comment. So that's a pretty interesting IT project, I have to say. So we're consuming various Excel files, and on the other side, we're servicing RESTful API. So the modern system, they seem that they have automated RESTful API call. They don't, but it's working. The clients don't invest into using that. So you need to be innovative in that type of situation. This is what I wanted to say, that you have to be creative, because nobody can make a company that doesn't have a API layer for the last 20 years. Obviously they need one, but they haven't done it the last 20 years, so they will not invent it next week, right? So you have to find the solution.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, I think as IT companies, we have to be able to consume the old and the new, because there's a lot of legacy out there. And since the 90s, I've been hearing we're not using Excel anymore, you know, and here using Excel, you know. And so you are going to have those files. I think, and if something works, why break it, right? So they want to keep it the same. I think there are some changes coming, though, because people are more conscious of things like cybersecurity. So they're kind of forcing more security around these files, and then they'll end up modernizing it. But yeah, you absolutely have to have a mix of something that can consume, you know, legacy CSV, Excel files, as well as, you know, more modern technology. And that's where a lot of the middleware comes in as well. You know.
Yeah, and try to look at that. How do you move customers, right? You know, that was kind of the original question, I think, right? How do you move from one world to the other, right? And to me, most of the drivers normally is the trade count goes up, the amount of records you do every day goes up, right? You went from trading 1,000 trades a day to 10,000, 100,000 trades a day. You add that with 3 times as many fees, right? And here we go. You now need 400,000 records a day at least coming through. So how do you move that across, right? You then look at the portfolio, figure out, hey, first of all, you need something to, you know, report across the solutions, right? But that's something like CubeLogic, right? Where you're actually reporting across multiple solutions at the same time. Then you look at what is the one that caused the biggest harm on the legacy solution? That's typically short-term power or something like that, right? Where you have the highest transaction count. That's when you start with that. Yeah. You start moving that over across first, so you can live longer with the existing solution. And then with the risk view and with the half transitioned over, you then start moving piece by piece to the new solutions, right? And try to figure out, as you said in the beginning, right? Is it only one ETRM, or do I need one for coal and one for power? You know, is it one for the US, one for Australia? Maybe it is, right? Because the markets are different enough that it makes sense to look at that and look at it that way. But by putting it in smaller pieces, you can move it across a relatively low risk. And even if something goes wrong, you still have the existing solution running, right? So for a little period of time, you don't have much you know, personal, you know, human handling on those type of trades anyways, right? So you can easily have a parallel system running for a while without big issues, right?
Yeah. So your question was, of course, like, how do you move customers, right? And sometimes you don't move customers. You have to realize that. It's like, there needs to be like pain, like incentive, right, to move, right? Yeah. And to prevent that, like, you need to have like some strategic thinking about it, right? But like very often I see customers like very recently, they noticed that they were missing out. They are a large corporate company and they're missing out on like newer like energy trading firms that are like agile and adapting to markets like far quicker than they can, right? And that's the real pain. Of course, that is too late, as now they have like a major project at hand to modernize the landscape and overall connectivity. But yeah, it's like there needs to be incentive. I think it all starts there to get that moving.
There's a lot about challenges and difficulties. So are there any good success stories you can talk about? You know, what's gone well? Give me an example of something, you know, where you've really integrated and it's all worked fantastically.
Great change. Just one sentence on your last comment. what really surprised me nowadays, 2024, 2025, is that we still get new clients and new projects where the customer insists on doing some crazy, difficult implementation, and then they say, could you do it in VBA? And we're like, why? Yeah, we have some internal knowledge in the technology and we want to use it and support it and stuff like that. So Excel will stay forever, is my opinion. Now on the positive side, on the success stories. The one that comes to mind, it's very close to the interoperability discussion, is we discovered probably last year at some point that there is a big friction on the market. Equius, that many of you is using as a service, they created a very cool modern API layer called EBO that is, you can integrate with EBO, move all your processes. It's a RESTful API. You don't need application servers anymore. You don't need all the, I mean, it's crazy improvement. But they had the issue that technologically speaking, you cannot use both. So you cannot use still the old solution and then you created in the market a big challenge because since you cannot use both, and people, as Asbjørn just said a minute ago, if you're a large corporation, you're not replacing a big bank. You're not replacing your big portfolio. You're just starting with a commodity or a different region and stuff like that. So that led up to a situation where big customers have to do now new implementations, not using the new approach, using the old approach, because otherwise their old TTRM system will stop working. So it's an amount of money invested in something from the past. I mean,
this is a success story, right?
Yeah, I'm describing the issue first. Yeah. Okay, the success story is that we realized that the issue is there, and we sit together with Equius last year, Q3, Q4, a few architectural workshops, and then we came up with a solution that allows that to not be the case. So they announced it over Europe. It is possible now to move commodity by commodity, even trade per trade if you want. So it is a big success story. A few clients are currently in implementation, but it is open for the whole market, so everybody can use it. Every customer from now on can go directly to the new API and not invest into our technology. So one of the major developments in the last couple of years, I would say.
Many success stories, because we have global enterprise clients using a credit risk system, so that's a success. It does work. Yeah. It's not like it's a huge challenge that's unsurmountable. The very fact that we have live clients means it works. But I would say that there have been certain clients that have said to us, how can we make the projects faster? How can we make, and which in turn makes them cheaper, right? How can we do that? And the best, and we always say the best thing to do is focus on your data. Clean up your data as much as you can before we start a project. And for the few that have taken that advice, we've seen the projects have gone a lot faster and a lot smoother. So it's definitely all doable, but it's also, if you want things to work faster, smarter, even make your projects run a bit cheaper, then I would say do your data cleanup.
Just the timing of when you do that, really, not doing it in project.
Not in project. we have a few like that kind of made their data cleansing part of the project, and that has dragged it out. But yeah, but there's definitely good success stories out there. But just going forward, we do have an explosion of data now. We've got more data than we've ever had. So how do we get the best insights from that data? And how can we make best use of that data? And that's down to really understanding the quality of the data and getting the best out of it.
Asbjørn?
Yeah, I also think it's, us as vendors, right? We need to drive this, right? So quite often when we talk to customers, right, at the end of the day, the customer needs a solution, right? And it's our responsibility to work with the other vendors to make sure these integrations are native, they're easy to do, and it's not the customer's problem, right? In many cases, we can make it much, much easier for all the new data. Of course, the old data, yeah, sure. You always have the data cleansing problem, especially, I think Sakib down in the audience and I was on a project many, many years ago in Vienna where all the data was in databases with no constraints and whatever. It's all free-form text in different fields. It's a nightmare, right? Of course. You can't do anything with that, right? But if you can work together as vendors and say, look, we will take care of this for you. We will figure out between us how we do this in a way where you get the best process and come back and show you, here's how we think it should work together. I think we solve the problems that way and we build a much better ecosystem of happy customers that way if you can work together that way.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
I think like overall like the success story is out there. There's like so many new vendors and vendors coming onto the market that have systems that are great, right? And so it's not the technology that is stopping us, but it's like the incentive to do it. And I think the other example is that there's like so many new like digital companies coming into play that set a reference how you do this, right? And like the old conventional companies can learn from that, like a Silicon Valley, like learn from these companies how they do it, how they address their problems, right? Connecting like business and IT and like really make that a joint effort. So I think that is a success story, and they've proven that it works. Right?
Yeah, that's true. All right, I know there's a pressure on the Margaret, but I'll do one more question, which is really around what are the sort of new technologies that are emerging, do you think really are making it easier? Any specifics on that?
I will not surprise anybody if I say AI, but I want to clarify something a bit. This challenge that we are all been discussing, and the presentations today were really fitting and marvelous to that. Basically, the volatility on the market, the geopolitical factors, all these risks actually make it vital importance the time from strategy to execution. At the moment when you have a new idea, you want to realize it, that should be zero, basically. It's not zero right now. I even have a story where one of the trading departments in one of our projects was saying that they need a new trading commodity. Basically, not a commodity, they wanted to do a new region, and they got a response that due to IT reasons, basically they need to wait for 2 months. And the response from the trading department, probably joking, but the guy was saying, you misunderstood me. If we don't trade this in the next few weeks, in 2 months, the company will not exist. Probably it was a joke. The question, though, is this brings value, strategy to execution, to minimize strategy to execution. When you want to go to a new commodity, new market, you want to change your price, whatever. That doesn't matter what decision do you make. This brings money if you're faster than everybody else. And AI can do that really cool. Not yet, but that brings totally new challenges, obviously. And the new challenges are, there was a study on AI from one of the big corporations that is saying that a programmer using AI is expected to be 16 times faster than usual programming in the next 5 years. Which means, from a business perspective, nobody will be using any other programmers if something is 16 times more expensive or more efficient. There, that what happens when, imagine the expertise that would be needed when you do need a developer. So AI fucked up and nobody understands the code anymore. So that would be really exciting times the next few years in that direction. And I'm very keen to be part of this. The industry has been immense challenge, but also passion, and it would be really, really fun to notice the AI influence on the upcoming years and the geopolitical risks.
Yeah, I agree on the AI and also what you said in terms of us as vendors, how we can actually make our systems talk to each other so that it is a bit more plug and play. But I think, as with everything else, the world is constantly evolving. There's always new channels. So, we get requests now like, oh, can you read my Teams chats? Can you bring it in from all these different channels that are coming in? Oh, my trader's talking to my credit analyst and they want to book this trade that they've got on their chat. So there's always something new as well, and I think we're going to continue to see new channels. But as a result of that, there's kind of a new industry as well, where we do have a lot more vendors that are particularly focused on how can we take this data from so many different new channels and bring it all together in a format that the rest of us can consume. So I don't think it's ever finished. I think this is going to be ongoing challenges.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, it's, not much to add to that, right? It's to me, it's streaming, it's serverless architecture, and it's AI, right? It's those three things that change things, right? And all three rely on data quality, right? If your AI is not worth much if the data is crap, right? It's going to do something really weird. So you need to get those three things together with the AI, so that then it could be game changing, right?
Yeah, it's difficult to add like something new, right? Like after this, but if I may add something, I think we're moving like so much into the cloud, and we're taking like so many like SaaS services from our vendors, right? Is the capability of managing and connecting multi-cloud environments. I think that will be key to drive our IT landscapes.
Yeah, no, very good. Should we take a question, or do you want to go for the margarita?
You guys.
Sure.
I mean, you can also sit and have questions over drinks.
That always works, right?
You get more honest answers.
Go on then. One.
The question will come at the end, but in every project, every implementation, we have the components of data systems, but we also have people. And based on my experience, a lot of the projects fail not because of the technology, not because of the data, but because of the people. So what would be your advice on someone who is planning on starting a project like this, an implementation, data lake optimization? What would
Who was going to tell that?
Get a project manager. I don't know how many projects we've been involved in where they're like, oh no, you know, one of the business users will take care of it, you know, because they think a project is just a list of tasks that you tick off, and it's not. It's much more engaging than that. And then when it gets to month end and everybody's too busy to focus on the project, things slip. So my advice would be always get a project manager, have good project governance, and really monitor things as it's happening, because that's the only way you're going to save the project from going down under.
Or create commercial incentives for the people who's part of the project, right? Ensure that the project team, you only get a bonus if this thing is a success. And you need to make it work by this point in time. If you have to cut a heel and chop a toe, whatever, but make it all financial incentive for them, right? Your bonus this year is depending on this project going live. If this project is not live, you get no money. That always helps.
Good advice. We were discussing with Gunnar just before, like an hour ago, something that needs to be said as well. Obviously, the advices would help, but my feeling and experience from the industry is that the current level of digitalization, especially after Corona, everybody started investing into that. The demand for quality people that understand technology, IT, energy domain, all the other stuff, have people skills and all this stuff, is probably 10 times more than available people. So even if you are really interested to get people on board, I don't believe that there are enough experts in Europe at least to cover all the demand, which leads to projects with suboptimal teams. And then obviously all the challenges come. How to deliver that type of complex implementations with suboptimal teams. And that's why the fighting for stuff. So my advice is something else. I believe as industry and as industry players, we should invest more into building more professionals and more experts, because that's the only, they're not enough. So aside of finding good potentials and then making them quality experts, I don't see another way out of the situation, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it's selecting a good team is an art, and amidst all the agile,
Yes.
we've kind of like lost track of like that we need like a project team and a project manager is somebody that is like ultimately and feels responsible for project delivery, right? And selecting a good team is key, I think.
In business, that's always the challenge, right? Always the challenge, yeah. All right.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Very good. Yeah, thanks.